Well, Brittany, thank you so much for joining me here today on The Ripple Effect with Ray. So excited to dive into your experience, all things Fairfax Pilates, and the inspiration behind opening up your own studio. Thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and share my journey and some tips of wisdom I have with your listeners. So, thank you.
Absolutely. So, Brittany, start us off here. Tell me a little bit more about your journey and how and why you were inspired to start Fairfax Pilates.
In my personal practice in early 2000s, I was an enthusiast of Pilates. I was taking private lessons several times a week, and that was wonderful, and I loved it. And my job then became full-time travel, and I found that I was in the same situation as my clients are today, right? Where they are overworked, they're eating out of vending machines because they're pulling late hours, they're traveling all the time, have some back pain, are finding it hard to make time for themselves. So I bought Pilates equipment for my own home with the goal of, okay, I've been doing Pilates privately for a few years. I should be able to do this. And I bought the equipment and I quickly realized I had no idea how to use my own equipment. So I went through the certification course selfishly to learn to use my own stuff. That was the only purpose. And I quickly fell in love with it. And so over time, it took me a couple of years to finish the certification courses while I was still working full time with a full time travel position. And so it took me a couple of years, but then that was became my exit strategy. I fell in love with it more than the job that I had, which I loved my job at the time. So that's really saying a lot that it pulled me away from a job that I loved. And so once I got my own things, I got all the certifications, and then I sort of began the journey to teaching in a studio and ultimately opening my own studio. So I identify with the clients because I've been there. I know what it feels like to put yourself last and to have very little free time and how you prioritize that free time and what the impact it can make on your life when you do.
Yeah, amazing. Well, coming from somebody who loves Pilates, I have my own little studio close to home. I totally know the power and the impact that it can have on the mind and the body. What has been some of that impact for you, whether it was even as a student and or as a studio owner?
Well, I'm fortunate that I've never had, let's use back pain as an example, because so many people come to Pilates because they're in some sort of chronic pain. And even though I had no injuries that would cause back pain, the lifestyle that I had, where I was spending so much time sitting, that I was traveling. So I was on an airplane every Monday and Thursday. I sat at a desk all day. I became uncomfortable in my body. Little things and everyday things that I would do became more challenging. And so when I was practicing Pilates, either for myself, let's just use myself as the example for the beginning, I noticed a shift very swiftly in how my body felt, how I was able to do everyday things better. Running through airports, toting, luggage, carry-ons, laptops, all those things, nothing substantial, but just everyday life, I found became easier. And so that's when the light switch went on for me, where I realized this is what I had to do for other people because I could relate to them so well about how things can hurt. Nothing is a greater motivator than pain. And so many people, they say sitting is the new smoking, right? Because it's just so terrible for you. And even as somebody who was a healthy, athletic person, just a few years in that lifestyle, and I had the aches and pains. And then you think about these people who were sitting at desks for 10 or 20 years, or even just sitting in their cars commuting for long periods of time. It really takes a negative toll on the body. And so that became my mission then, was to help other people. Okay, we know you can't necessarily change your lifestyle or your job, but what can we do in your off hours to make that more palatable? How can we manage the discomfort that you're in? And so that's what prompted me to leave my job and open a studio. And so I did, and I've been teaching other people how to live, more confidently and in a more empowered way so that they can do all the things that they want to do better and with more confidence and with more ease. So, that's sort of how all of that got started. And now, we serve over 100 people who are, they weren't necessarily fitness enthusiasts, but they were active and they wanted to be able to stay active. So a lot of the people who we help now are those who just do what they love despite how old they get, right? So we're just helping everyone age gracefully. So you can help people do what they want to do longer. And that's the beauty of Pilates, I believe.
That's amazing, and I could not agree more with what you're saying because it utilizes and isolates certain muscles in the body that you wouldn't otherwise be able to really access otherwise. Yeah, I can see the impact that it's had, and I love that it really inspired you to open up your own studio space. It's not an easy feat. And it takes a lot of work, especially
Yeah.
to gain the clientele, the customers, and to stand out and,
Right.
attract people in and to keep coming back as well. So for anyone listening, maybe even aspiring business owners that want to open up, whether it be any sort of studio, yoga, Pilates, gym, whatever, what would you tell them? What do you wish you would have heard before or during your opening?
I think it would have been great to hear some absolute do these things as like a recipe to follow exactly. However, when you make mistakes along the way, I feel like that is so much more impactful. So because once you make those mistakes, right, they're ingrained, right? You understand what happens. And one mistake that I necessarily didn't make, but that I really saw the value of over the years of having my practice and trying out all these different things is the authenticity piece. So my why of starting a studio was very much on how I felt about it and how it impacted me. And so I was extremely passionate about what I was doing and why I was doing it. Had someone told me that at the beginning, I would have said, "Oh, yeah, 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 I get it." But when I am witnessing through experience what works and what doesn't, it's very obvious when someone is doing something because they want to make money versus somebody who does something because they're very passionate about it and it's part of who they are. And so, anybody who's going to open any kind of wellness center, fitness, boutique, studio, clinic, whatever, I believe that it has to be 100% from a good place and a genuine, authentic desire to bring that service to the community. So it's not because I want to just make tons of money. I made more money in my last job, but this is something that brings me so much more joy and it fulfills me more. So I think the authenticity piece is absolutely critical. We are seeing, I know you mentioned a little bit about, just general with gyms and all of that. If you sort of look at what's going on now, CrossFit used to be the number one game in the space. And over the last handful of years, there's a dramatic shift to mindful practices and formats. Yoga and Pilates is almost $200 billion industry in the United States alone. It's one of the fastest growing fitness formats. And it's because, and what I perceive as the reason why is because it's rooted in fundamental movements. It is CrossFit and moving heavy things. Well, I think it's great. I like going to the gym myself, but moving heavy things and just your gym stuff makes your body look a certain way, and that's amazing. Pilates makes your body feel a certain way. And I'm noticing that that is what more people want, with more emphasis on wellness and just overall health. And this whole premise of aging gracefully, it'd be great to have a six pack, but wouldn't it be better if you could bend down and put your shoes on without any kind of discomfort or creaking in the back? Or wouldn't it be better if you could play with your kids or your grandkids or continue to garden or travel alone or live independently? Those things, as I've gotten a little older, I used to be like, yeah, six pack, that looks so good. But now it's okay, I'm almost 50. I can still do cartwheels with my kids and not be in horrible pain the next day. And so that to me is what I believe is the trend, right? People don't want to just look a certain way, they want to feel better. And the mindful fitness space like Pilates, like yoga does that. And Pilates has an advantage in that we have it's not just mat-based Pilates. So Fairfax Pilates, where I teach, is an equipment studio. And the equipment is a beautiful combination of strength and stretch in every move. So you are getting the resistance training, the bone density building benefits that you would with lifting heavy things in the gym, but you also have the awareness in moving very, very intelligently so that we are preserving the joints. We are improving range of motion. We are tightening up all the like the stabilizer muscles in all the joints in the spine so that you can, if you want to go lift heavy things, you can, and you can do it without pain. But if you also want to just, you know, be a normal person going for a walk, walking your dog, whatever, that also is without pain. And you still look nice. You have long, lean muscles, you have better posture, you have more mobility and flexibility and balance. So one of the things that we focus on, one of our core values, is related to empowered aging because, and aging doesn't mean you have to be 80 years old, right? Once you get over 30, things start to feel different than they did when you were 18, right? This sense of empowered aging, it's like, I want to be able to do XYZ on my own. As a woman, I want to be able to put my luggage in the overhead bin without the assistance of a stronger man, right? Or I want to be able to open these jars on my own. Just these little things that I never really thought about when I was younger. But as I'm getting older and as my clients are getting older, I'm seeing the value of this independence. And I believe that Pilates does so much of that. It works on your grip strength and it works on your posture and your core strength, which again isn't six pack. It's just living. It's can I sit here and read a book and then get up out of my chair without using my hands and not wobble and not have any discomfort? That's life to me. And I find that that is the direction of the fitness industry in general. It's not just about looking like a model on the runway, but it is about feeling like you feel like you're a model, right? You're walking around with confidence and you're tall, and there's no better look than confidence, in my opinion.
It's so beautifully said, Brittany. I agree. I think there's so much of the way that you carry yourself. And I will argue, when I look at myself in the Pilates mirrors, I see some abs peeking out. So I will say you can have it all. And again, that doesn't discount, going to the gym because that has its time and place as well. But yeah, like you said, with Pilates, there's definitely this mobility, balance, strength that you need for just everyday life. So I completely agree with that. And just, yeah, the toning, and I think it's great that it's just accessible for all ages.
Right.
What would you say has been one of your greatest challenges or teachers, maybe frustrations, and what do you think helped you overcome that?
So this ties into your question about if somebody were thinking of starting a studio. Um, there are a lot of businesses out there that are very big. And I've been parts of all sorts of mastermind groups where they're helping you think through how can I get bigger? How can I expand? How can I more trainers, more locations, more clients? That's great. For me personally, I think that's a very difficult challenge, right? So the more logistics, the more moving parts, the more difficult to manage. So, obviously COVID was an enormous challenge. I'm going to pass over that because that's obvious, right? Everybody had to deal with that in their own way, but hopefully we won't have that sort of instance again. But what we will have is just economy shifts and differences in what might surge and what might go down in terms of what the industry or the people want and can afford. I have found that the best way to run my business is to stay small and agile. And so um, finding a lot of certification or certified instructors and available people to teach, 50 hours a week, all these classes, that can become a headache and a challenge. And when I opened my studio pre-COVID, I had an enormous studio, I had tons of teachers, tons of classes, and then COVID, right? So it all went down, right? So but now, I have had a rise of instructors coming on board and then leaving and so forth. So what I think has been very helpful me personally, and what I would advise anybody who is opening a new place, is to stay small enough that you alone could do it, though you wouldn't want to do it all. Could you do it all? So, I've been fortunate in that the teachers I've had in my studio have been with me a very long time. I just lost a couple people who had been with me more than 9 years. And so those people are like family. And so that hit really hard. So when you start to grow a business, and of course you need more teachers on your team, when they leave, that's very disruptive to your business. And so what I learned is that I am able to step in. I can do all of the things. So versus a large corporation where you've got an IT department and an HR department and a team of engineers or whatever, I might not be able to do the engineer work, or I might not be able to do the HR work if in a larger company. But in a small business, I can step in. I can do all the teaching if I had to. I can work with every type of client, from athletic conditioning to, post-surgical kind of rehabilitative services. I can do all of the phone answering. I can do customer service. I can do the tech support. I can do a little bit of the website. So I find that you have to stay small so that you can be agile. And you also want to be able to do all the things should you have to, because there's no worse place to be than to feel desperate. And so if somebody leaves your team, if you've built a team and they leave and you think, oh no, my business is going to go down, that's like the worst place to be. And so as I was growing my business, just something that I did instinctively, which I'm grateful I did later, was that before I would hire anyone to do anything, whether it was website development, programming my software, or of course, teaching any level of client, I did it first. I wanted to know what actually needed to be done from a transparency perspective, so that I knew if I hired someone and they said they had to do these three things, one, I knew that that is what they needed to do and I wasn't being taken advantage of, but also I knew what the right pay was. I knew how much work is truly involved. And then that allowed me to be more agile. So when we have surges in clients, yes, it's great to have more people. But when we have low times, when I just lost, 3 teachers this year, yes, did I work 1 million hours a week and slowly lose my soul for a little bit doing that? Yes, but there was also a peace that came with it to know I'm okay because I can do it. I am not going to lose my business because I don't know how to do these things. So it's an ideal situation when you have enough people to share all of the workload and you're not overloaded, and you can continue to do what you do and love what you do, and you hire out the things you don't love. However, you got to know how to do all the things so that if you're ever in a predicament, you're okay. And that's the resilience that comes with being a small business. Some of these
Mm.
larger studios that are these big, franchises, or even if they just have, 8 locations. I can't tell you how many people I know who have 5 or more locations. And I just think, my goodness, what happens when stuff goes wrong? My most valuable asset is my time. And so what I don't want to be doing is filling in for all the studios I own. I'm in the greater Northern Virginia area. 5 minutes takes me an hour, or 5 miles could take me an hour driving. I don't want to be driving all over the place to fill in for classes that I lose a teacher. So I think small, agile businesses are the ones that are best able to navigate any kind of, challenges that you see in the economy, in the community, in the area, whatever. It's easier to mitigate those challenges.
Yeah, so to me, it sounds like you found it, right? Like you have placed your flag and like the one studio that you're like, this is home for me.
Yeah.
And this is where I feel happy. I don't see myself expanding to 5 to 8 plus studios. You're like, no, Fairfax Pilates. I can adapt. I know what that looks like. I can fill in. I can step in if I need to.
Mm.
And this is, kind of your place, your purpose, and
Right.
what drives you essentially. So where do you hope to be in the next 6, 12 months, couple years from now?
Well, that's a great question, and I find that it evolves every year. So things that maybe I had set out for myself have evolved a little bit. I would love to still be involved with the studio. I want to maybe teach fewer days, but I still love it. I would work for free if I could. I love teaching. That is my passion. All the behind the scenes things less passionate about, taxes and bookkeeping and that sort of thing. I love teaching. I want to continue teaching. I want to continue teaching in person. I like teaching classes, small group classes, and I like teaching private lessons. So I do want to continue doing that to some extent. I also love leading retreats. So I've been leading retreats now for a few years. I love that. I love the getting away. I love just really focusing on nothing other than nutrition and wellness for a handful of days. Just take a minute out of your week, a minute out of your life, and let's just reconnect. I find that it's insanely amazing for not only your overall well-being, but also that sense of community and connection, which is so important. And you get to connect with people who you may otherwise really like, but not know enough about them and how similar you are. And that those kinds of connections I think are missing in today's society. We spend so much time online that that kind of intimate connection is so important. So I love retreats. I would like to do more retreats. And then I have now launched a YouTube channel. Oh, you got a kitty. I have a kitty too. I'm surprised mine isn't on my lap. I have also started a YouTube channel a couple of years ago with the intention, much smaller scale. And initially, we have self-guided sessions at my studio. I created these videos mainly for my members to come into my studio, rent the equipment that we have, and watch videos that I know are safe. We're getting more viewership, and so that is something that's important to me too. Continue to share videos on the YouTube site so that other people can do their workouts from home. And I know that what workout I'm giving them is safe and effective and very efficient. So I feel comfortable with people doing that from home. I'm not doing anything crazy that would be dangerous. Continuing to teach, definitely continuing with retreats and the YouTube channel. Plus, I like to just mentor the instructors that I have at my studio to make sure that they are continuing to be their best. So I enjoy watching them grow. And while they bring tons of their own talent, of course, I wouldn't hire them if they didn't, but I like helping people become better versions of themselves, whether it's a teacher in that instance and how they can become a better instructor, or just watching my clients grow. So I like that connection, the relationship building with the people who are in my studio, and then now through the YouTube channel, people who are remote as well. So that's where ask me in 12 months, it might be different, but that's what's on the horizon for the next year or so for me.
Amazing, Brittany. Well, yeah, we'll have to reconnect in a year or so, see where you're at, and where can people find you? How can people find this YouTube? I'll include everything in the show notes, but how can people connect?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So I'll provide you with the link to my website, Fairfax Pilates, and I'm on YouTube, Pilates by Brittany. And anybody who is, aspiring to open a studio, I have coached fitness business owners for years as well. So coming from a business background and into Pilates, most people just have a passion about the trade that they do, but they don't have a lot of the business background. So can certainly help people. Either as a mentorship or as an actual coach. I'll provide you with the links. That's all through Fairfax Pilates as well. So I'll provide you with all those links so you can share it with your listeners.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for hopping on to the Ripple Effect with Ray today. It's been such an honor and pleasure getting to chat with you, deep dive in all things Pilates and beyond. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me and have a great weekend.